Peace and love, family, and welcome back to another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and as every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we're here to bring you hope, to bring you encouragement, to share with you tools and things that can be able to assist you in your journey and help you to have the best life possible. And also, something very, very important that we do on the Sunday Hope and Healing session. Frequently, we'll actually offer healing. For the last 20 something years, I've been blessed to be a vessel of healing. God is the healer, and I'm thankful for the privilege of being able to be a vessel of that healing. Love is the tool through which that healing actually takes place. And I'm thankful to be able to bring that here, independent of the fact that this is a live stream. Even if you are catching it on a playback, the healing can happen for you. And we do that healing through a methodology referred to as Transcending the Matrix, which is a holistic based approach to healing that addresses every aspect of a person's beingness. Yes, it includes your physical body, but it's not limited to your physical body, because the physical body is actually in many ways a projection of the mind, and the things that are going on internally, the things that are going on a non-physical level end up impacting what happens with your body temple on the physical level. If you don't believe it, just spend a whole lot of time being stressed all the way out, worried and anxious, and see how that ends up impacting your body. Okay, I don't want to belabor that too much, but we're happy to be here with you today. And the topic that we're dealing with today, the focus is really spoke a couple hours ago at Transforming Love Community. And the focal point for today is going to be less about me speaking and more about actual healing, doing healing work. And the focal point for today's healing is actually dealing with protecting your heart, protecting your heart. So I won't do a whole lot of talking today. Most of the focus will be healing to help us to protect our heart. I don't know who all will be attracted to this based on this title, but I wear most days, and I'm wearing it right now, a copper bracelet that actually has a scripture on it about guard your heart with all diligence, or protect your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow all the issues of your life. In other words, everything that's flowing out of your life or that's flowing in your life is a result of what it is that's going on in your heart. So it's important that you protect your heart, guard your heart, or protect your heart, to make sure that your heart is healthy, that your heart is in a good state, is in a good space. Okay? Because if your heart isn't right, there's a whole lot of other stuff that's going to go wrong, that's not going to be right if your heart's not right. Curly Conscious King, greetings to you, my brothers. Good to see you today as always. Glad you enjoyed the message at TLC today earlier as well. Blessings to you, brother. And to everybody who's here with us today. Bountiful, bright blessings upon us all. Okay. And so dealing with this concept of protecting the heart. A lot of times we experience different stuff that doesn't feel so good to us. You know, we might have experienced like disappointment or betrayal. We might have experienced somebody, showing up in a way different than we expected, and things not working out the way that we wanted them to. And then, or we have situations that don't work out quite how we wanted them to, and we may be greatly tempted to step into a lot of negative emotion and a lot of stuff that really isn't going to ultimately serve us very well. We might develop bitterness and resentment. We might end up harboring rage and animosity. It's understandable for us to experience to experience hurt and disappointment. However, it's also very critical that we protect our hearts from the negativity that would seek to seep its way into our hearts, because whatever it is that's going on in our hearts, that's going to actually end up impacting so many different areas in our lives. It's going to impact our decisions. It's going to impact our intentions towards other people. And we can't intend anything negative to somebody else without that coming back to us. It's just how stuff works. You can't hope bad to fall upon somebody else without being lined up with the vibrational frequency of bad happening. And if you're lined up with the vibrational frequency of bad happening, then it's just the case that bad is going to happen to you, because that's the vibrational frequency with which you're aligned. And so, yeah, there have been some people who've done some stuff that you didn't like. Yeah, there have been some people that you have encountered, maybe in your personal life, maybe just in the bigger scheme of things. Maybe there's somebody politically that you don't care for. Maybe there's some celebrity that you don't care for. You know, maybe it's somebody in your direct life that you interact with. Maybe it's somebody that has interacted with somebody that you care about. Maybe it's somebody who's just some public figure that you don't even know personally, right? And don't have any direct access to whatsoever, whatever the case is. And I started to call this Only Let Love In. Only let love in your heart. Only let love in your heart. The reality is that all kinds of stuff can enter our heart. And it's important for us to serve ourselves well by creating a barrier or a filtration system to determine what is able to make it into our hearts and what isn't. Now, this isn't something that's particularly complex for human beings. A lot of times when we've been hurt or disappointed or things haven't worked out quite the way that we wanted them to, we've created barriers around our hearts in the form of walls. We've been hurt or disappointed in love, and so we create a barrier so that we don't get ourselves in that situation again. Maybe it was even a parent, you know, from a caregiver from when you were very young and you were disappointed and you didn't have a caregiver show up for you the way that you wanted to, and experienced a lot of pain and hurt and disappointment from that. And then you decided subconsciously that you weren't going to let anybody else get in like that, where you'd be vulnerable and so forth. And so you put a wall around your heart, and you've chosen not to let love in because you somehow thought that because you allowed yourself to love before, or you allowed yourself to be open before, or you allowed yourself to be vulnerable before, and it resulted in pain, that you were going to close off and keep anything from ever happening to you again. Well, the reality is that's not actually protecting your heart. That is actually closing off your heart from the oxygen source that helps to keep your heart active and alive. And yes, I'm speaking in two ways at the same time. I'm speaking in two ways at the same time. Years ago, I had come home for what was going to be a weekend, stayed a few extra days. Around the middle of the week or so, I received a phone call, and the person on the other line said that my stepfather at the time was pretty sick, that he had what I interpreted him to have said was a mild cardio infraction, which I didn't quite understand, because he was indicating that he was rather sick, but I'm also hearing mild. I didn't really, it wasn't really quite connecting for me. I later came to understand that what this person actually said was myocardio infarction. myocardial infarction, which is a heart attack. He ended up being in the hospital for a little while, and then upon getting out of the hospital, he ended up connecting with a heart doctor who was a little bit different than your typical heart doctor. And this particular doctor dealt with the heart from a physical standpoint and dealt with the heart from an emotional and spiritual standpoint. And so there were things that that this particular doctor was dealing with him on in terms of the healing of his heart from a in terms of utilizing some spiritual approaches and purification of the heart to allow the heart to actually heal. Okay, allow that heart to actually heal. Okay, and so I said I wasn't going to do a whole lot of talking, but I will say this real quickly. Whether you have physical issues with your heart or not, it's important to protect what goes into your heart, because what goes into your heart will show up in what comes out of your heart and how it is that you behave and how it is that you respond. And that will affect virtually, if not every area of your life. Okay. And so in this context of protecting the heart, I'm talking about protecting the heart from all of the things that want to get in your heart that are not good for your heart, like the anger, hatred, bitterness, wanting to see someone else suffer, wishing bad on someone else. This is work that we are called to do, protecting our heart so that only love comes in and that which is good for us. Similarly, when other people are trying to spew negativity and hatred and animosity towards you, not letting that get in and only letting love get in, letting all that stuff be filtered out so that only those intentions towards you that are good and loving can make their way to you. Okay, so you'll have a bit of a force field around you from that other negativity that people may want to bring to your doorstep and into your life. Okay, all right, so we're going to go ahead and get into the healing of this right now, to strengthen our hearts, to be able to have the most healthy hearts possible, from a spiritual, emotional, and physical level. And so I'm going to start with a prayer. God, I know you to be a healer. You who is the supreme one in all the universe. There's nothing beyond your healing power. And I know it is your good pleasure for our hearts to be in good shape. For you look at the heart and you don't see us the way we see each other based on looks or appearances or how much worldly influence that we might have, or material possessions, or any of those other things that humans judge people based on. You're chiefly concerned with our heart and what's going on in our hearts, and you want us to have hearts that are aligned with you, because that's what allows us to be in the healthiest place possible, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so I thank you for allowing me to be a vessel of your healing through the union that we share through the power of your pure love, for the purpose of neutralizing the root cause of all lower vibrational gook that we have let into our hearts in the past, regardless of what reason any of that negativity could have made its way into our hearts, and purifying it through the power of your pure love and your divine light, transmuting it and replacing it with a divinely created spiritual filtration system that filters out all that isn't good and allows only love into our hearts, only peace into our hearts, only well-being and good intentions towards ourselves and others into our hearts. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right, so let's get into some of this now. All right, so let's look at first thing that came up right off the bat. Gina Griffin, good to see you, my sister. The first thing that came up right off the bat is, I got distracted, then I forgot what it was. Come back to me, come back to me, come back to me. I don't recall consciously what it was, but I'm setting my intention that whatever that was, and it was good. So I would have liked to have given voice to it. We're going to go ahead and address that, purifying that through the power of God's pure love, and transmute it into divine well-being. Okay. All right. All right. One of the things that gets in our way in terms of our heart and what goes on in our heart, here we are. Here's what it is our incessant need to be right. So we're going to submit that before the altar of God to be transmuted and purified and replaced with a willingness to accept divine correction. All right, let's strengthen that in all of us. And when I say accept divine correction, I'm not talking about being punished for your misactions or your misdeeds. The correction is love. The correction is love. And so the battle that we get ourselves into is an internal conflict between whether we want to be right or whether we want to be at peace. And unfortunately, the way the ego works is the ego 100% of the time wants to be right. And sometimes we give in to the ego, the part of us that wants to edge God out, and we focus on and fixate on being right rather than allowing ourselves to be at peace. And so let's look at allowing ourselves to be, and the correction is really allowing ourselves to be set straight in terms of how we're seeing things and our perception. Okay. Because virtually everything that we see isn't as it seems. In the ancient Sanskrit, they have a term called Maya, which we frequently translate as illusion. What the word really means is that things are not as they seem. Okay. This is what I refer to as the matrix of third dimensional beliefs of separation and limitation that's rooted and grounded in fear. What is fear? False evidence that appears real. Okay. All of these things that we see, the animosity that we get towards others, the way that we end up feeling less than in some way within ourselves, all of that is false evidence that appears real. Who is presenting that evidence? Ha-Satan, the Satan, which means the accuser, the one who's presenting the false evidence that appears real. There's an aspect in your consciousness and in my consciousness that wants to hold us in a state of feeling guilty and shameful, and that wants to hold others as being guilty and wrong and responsible for whatever isn't going right in our lives. And so I want to strengthen all of us to be able to have that errant belief system, that errant perspective corrected, to be able to see a greater and deeper truth. And the greater and deeper truth is that we only experience this fear-based stuff. in moments where we're not completely wrapped up in love. The scriptures say that perfect love casts out fear. Okay. And so any issue can be resolved with enough love. I'm telling you, somebody who's been doing this healing work for 20 something years. I've seen all kinds of amazing things happen, and the correction that gets things right is always love. I'm sharing trade secrets with you here. The whole training program, I'm sharing a little trade secret with you there. The conduit that makes the healing possible is love. Okay. All right. So let's look at some things that we've maybe held in our hearts and deal with those things. And so we have a comment about disappointment. Okay. It's understandable for a person to experience a sense of disappointment. But let's take that disappointment, purify it through the power of pure love, and transmute the disappointment into increased wisdom. We transmute that disappointment into increased wisdom and acceptance. When I say acceptance, I don't mean that you have to accept a certain type of behavior that is not worthy of you. I'm not saying that at all. But accept that the situation is what it is, and the situation was what it was, without having to actually let darkness or heaviness or any of those other things into your heart and take up real estate in your heart. Okay, transmuting that through the power of God's pure love and transmuting it into a sense of divine freedom. Okay, boost that up a little more. All right. Now, another thing that I want to look at is feeling. This is largely connected to the need to be right. Very largely connected to the need to be right is the need to make somebody else wrong. Okay. All right. Before I go into that, let's look at our fascination with the blame game. Right? It's really kind of connected. So let's transmute that fascination with the blame game to seeking to see the innocence and purify that through the power of God's pure love. We can't see another person's innocence if we're blinded by our own sense of guilt and shame. And sometimes we get blinded by our own sense of guilt and shame because as spiritual beings living out an earthly life, having a human experience, we've forgotten who it is that we really are. And we've gotten caught up in being something and pretending to be something less than who we are. And even though there are things that happen to us that aren't pleasant, who we are is not a victim. Who we are is not broken. Who we are is not bad. However, when we think those things, we can't help but to see other people as being connected to those things. All right. And so when we get to the point of seeing ourselves in a sense of true innocence and seeing everyone else from in a state of true innocence, then what becomes the enemy, because the enemy is never another person, what becomes the enemy is the wrong thinking, the misguided thought process, that part of you that's trying to edge God out by pointing to what's wrong with somebody else and how you can exact revenge on them or seek punishment or some kind of pain for them. All right. It's easy to do that. It is so easy to do that. But as a spiritual being, you are weakening yourself by doing it. Okay. You're making yourself a lesser version of yourself than what you actually are. Okay. When who you are divinely designed to be is someone who sees beyond the illusion and sees the greater truth. And you can even look at somebody else's misguided behavior and establishing a healthy boundary around yourself to where you'll only be treated as a divine being, which will include you treating yourself only as a divine being. And a divine being doesn't get caught up in seeing, and well, let me put it this way. A divine being doesn't see a point in getting caught up in the judgmentalism and the seeking of revenge and the pain and punishment of another. The divine being seeks redemption. The goal is redemption. Not revenge, but redemption. Restoration to wholeness. The reality is that we are really all one. Whether we look the same or different, whether we have the same body parts or different body parts, whether we worship the same, speak the same, dress the same, vote the same, or any of that, we still are all one. We're still all created in the image and the likeness of divine perfection itself. And when you see somebody behaving like something that's something other than divine perfection, then that correction is just necessary. And the correction is seen welcoming love into the space, right? Welcoming compassion into the space. So you can see somebody who, you know, may be going in a wrong direction, and just recognize, maybe feel a little sorry for them, recognizing that they're off the path. But them being off the path, you don't have to use as an excuse for you to get off the path too. You can keep your own vibration intact while recognizing that there's a need for them to get their vibration intact. And you can keep your vibration intact and have compassion for them and surround them in a bubble of love and compassion and grace and peace, while keeping yourself surrounded in that bubble of love too. So let me do something. Let's strengthen our resolve. Let's strengthen our resolve to our own spiritual growth and maturity. I'm going to boost up strengthening our resolve to our own spiritual growth and maturity. And a spiritually mature person doesn't dwindle their energy away, focusing on how screwed up somebody else is. Okay. But is actually able to focus on the resolution and resolving to see through the eyes of wholeness. Okay. All right. I want to look at trauma. Let's resolve some trauma today. First, starting with fetal trauma. From when we were in the womb and heard certain things, and maybe we were subject to some things that our mothers might have been going through while we were in the womb, and some difficult things that she may have had to have dealt with. So want to actually purify and cleanse and heal that within us, as well as within our mother. Even if your mother is not on the planet anymore, this can still work for her healing retroactively as well as for your healing. and even future generations. Okay. All right. And so in addition to the fetal trauma, let's look at birth. Birth trauma isn't coming up as so much of an issue, but sexual trauma is coming up as a very large issue. So we want to purify that through the power of pure love, welcoming in the light of God's love to the place where that pain has been held. Where darkness is, the darkness cannot continue to exist when introduced to the light. In the presence of the light, the darkness automatically disappears. Okay, so we bring in the light of God's love into those dark places that we've tucked away deep inside of us from any type of sexual trauma. Okay, whether that has come from rape or sodomy or harassment or any other form. Okay. All right. And anything in that, in connection with that might negatively impact how one sees oneself who endured that, replacing that, welcoming in the light of God's love and grace and peace into that space, and restoration to wholeness. Okay. All right. Okay. And also want to deal with any baggage in the DNA. I'm going to clear that out. All right. And any pieces of your soul that you may have given away to try to cope. Okay. I'm going to call those soul fragments washed and cleansed, purified through the pure love and divine light of God, and return to you. Okay. And sometimes when harsh things have happened to us, the way that part of how we want to cope is by doing harsh things to other people as well. Okay. And sometimes it's, could come in the form of manipulating someone else, or subconsciously kind of taking fragments of their soul to replace missing pieces within our own, or to fill the void of some brokenness that we might feel within ourselves, and a misguided attempt, but an attempt nonetheless to find ourselves restored back to wholeness. And so we lovingly release those soul fragments of others that we've held on to, washed and cleansed through the light of God's love, and returning to them whole. All right. Now I'm getting that somebody's feeling some resistance to what I'm dealing with, because a part that still wants somebody else to suffer. This may be having a little bit of difficulty letting go of what it was that happened in the past, or the idea that they shouldn't be able to just get off scot-free. Okay, so we want to address that. Now, it's impossible to hold on to the animosity without the animosity affecting you. Okay. And so want to replace that with self-forgiveness. Okay. Say it. My friend Spencer Murray, that I heard say one time that unforgiveness is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. Okay. And so let's deal with self-forgiveness. Why would we have a hard time dealing with self-forgiveness? Because we think that we're not worthy of, because we think that we're flawed somehow, that we're damaged goods. So we want to purify that through the power of pure love. Okay. And replacing it with self-acceptance, self-love. Okay. And an openness to receive love. That was a break. We want to strengthen that. Strengthen the openness to receive love. Okay. Now, there may be a resistance to that because the love may be unfamiliar. Okay, so that's would deal with kind of like a fear of the unknown. So we want to address that fear of the unknown and replace it with enthused about the new and improved. Enthused about the new and improved. Okay. Yeah, that's looking better. All right. Okay. And let's actually want to get back kind of to this spiritual filtration system that just allows the love and the good stuff in. I want to program into this filtration system, this heart filtration system, for it to be able to be self-sustaining. Okay. Self-sustaining heart filtration system that only lets love and light and the good stuff in. So that it doesn't ever get backed up or broken down. Okay. All right. Okay. And having still, nonetheless, a all lifetimes warranty for service. All right. So that if anything ever does go wrong, that heart filtration system can be serviced. Can be serviced by an all-knowing and all-loving God. And for you to be able to have that assurance. Okay. All right. That felt good. I'm feeling that one. Okay. All right. So another thing that we want to take a look at right now, and I want to get into some specific emotional states. The first one that's coming up right now is bitterness. So you want to transmute that bitterness. Ooh, boy. A lot of bitterness going on here. So a lot of bitterness that needs to be cleared out. Transmute that bitterness into forgiveness, peace, and self-love. All right. When I look at fear. I checked hatred, but hatred wasn't coming up as the issue. Fear, I checked that, and fear came up as a really big issue. So we're going to purify that through the power of God's pure love, transmuting that and purifying the fear into truth. Strengthen the truth, and more specifically, right recognition of the truth. Saw a comedian recently who was saying, talking about somebody giving advice to a guy giving a lady advice about a guy who was clearly a dog and she wasn't wanting to see it. She wasn't wanting, she had her idea of what she wanted the truth to be, but that's not what, that was the illusion. It wasn't what the truth actually was. He was just wanting one thing and wasn't really concerned with her well-being. This guy could see that clearly, but she wasn't wanting to see it. So let's strengthen us to be actually open to the truth, wanting to see what the actual truth actually is, and to be able to flow in truth. Okay. To be able to hear and receive what truth actually is, and to be committed to being honest within oneself. Okay. Let me put that another way: to be true to oneself, to exist in a state of integrity. Okay. And beyond that, to be true to one's higher self. All right. Let's boost up, strengthen that up some more. Okay. We've got our lower nature and we've got our higher nature. The lower nature keeps us locked into the part of us that wants to edge God out. That is our lower nature, in fact. Whereas our higher nature, both are wanting to rule, but our higher nature actually allows us to dwell in peace and joy and well-being. Okay. Our higher nature actually brings up about the miracles. Okay. So let's strengthen that. All right. Okay. And I want to take a look at, for a moment, I want to take a look at creating outlets through which love can be expressed, and inlets through which love can be received. Okay. Here's a program called A Course in Miracles that states that its primary function is to remove the barriers to the awareness of love's presence. All right. So I know in my own life there have been times where I didn't feel necessarily that loved, and because that was what that's the space that I was in, I wasn't always receptive to see where it was actually showing up or how it was actually being expressed. So let's boost us for our spiritual eyes to be open and receptive to love, and to be able to see love as it's actually being expressed, and to be open to being an active participant with love. Okay. All right. Now, let's take a moment now and deal with all the programming of the world. The programming of the world wants you to see yourself as unworthy of love. The programming of the world also wants sometimes for you to see yourself as entitled. And entitlement is not the same thing as feeling worthy. Okay. And feeling entitled is a sense that somebody owes you something. Feeling worthy means that you are open to the good. Okay. All right. So let's create that distinction, and also at the same time deal with all of the various ways in which the world would program you to resist love and to withhold love, such as the attempt, their perceived need to try to control other people. Okay. Love heals. Love does not seek to control. Love sets free. Love doesn't control. Right? So let's deal with those inner demons that might have us fearful of a person withdrawing their love from us if we're not forcing them to love us or trying to control them in some way. All right. All right. So we want to rule that out, and loving ourselves and others enough to let folks be who they are. Okay. Thereby giving ourselves space to be our authentic selves. Okay. All right. So let's boost that up, giving ourselves space to be our authentic selves. You know that when you're with people that you can truly be yourself with, that's a safe space. That literally, by definition, is a safe space. All right. So let's strengthen us all to be able to find that safe space. And we're able to find a safe space and able to be a safe space. Okay. And if you feel like you're always trying to put masks on to present some certain aspect of yourself, but not really just being your full self, then it's hard to really feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, there are all these other things that can kind of come into your heart. So let's actually strengthen us all to be able to, first and foremost, feel safe with ourselves. Feel safe with ourselves because we can trust ourselves to protect our heart, so that we're focused on that which is actually loving towards us. And we only behave towards ourselves in ways that are loving towards ourselves. Okay. All right. All right. Now, something else I want to look at is I want to look at karma. Let's address some karma. There have been times where we have done things that hurt others and we just kind of wrote it off. We didn't really necessarily take responsibility for our actions and how our actions might have negatively impacted someone else. And karma does have a way of coming back around. The purpose of karma, by the way, isn't to punish people. Its purpose is to inspire compassion. Okay. Because we really are all one. And if you do harm to somebody else, you're doing harm to yourself. Okay. And so the goal of karma is to inspire compassion. All right. So to be able to genuinely have compassion towards others whom you have caused pain. A lot of times it's easy for us to see how somebody else caused us pain, and where we are in our life is because of somebody else's decisions or the way somebody else did something or refrained from doing something. But we don't necessarily always see how somebody else is in therapy because of us, or needs to be, right? Because of decisions that we made, or ways that we showed up that brought pain to them, or ways that we refrained from showing up in ways that ended up bringing pain to them. All right. So we want to strengthen ourselves to be able to have a sense of self-awareness and compassion for others whose pain we had a role in. Okay, I want to strengthen us for that. All right. And the way the things work is, we know deep down, subconsciously, what janky stuff we've done that has impacted other people. And subconsciously, we feel like we need some kind of payback. And so we end up finding ourselves in situations where that happens. There have been so many times where people have, what one would consider, done wrong by me, and then immediately I saw something happen to them. I didn't want anything to happen to them. I wasn't the one campaigning for something bad to happen to them. But immediately afterwards, I saw something happen to them, and I did feel genuine compassion. But I want to strengthen us all to be able to know that whatever harm anyone does to you is making its way back to the person who caused it to you, but to have compassion for that. And also, whatever intentions, good or bad, that you have towards anyone else is also coming back to you. And so to be able to use that as a guidepost to be able to keep your heart pure. Okay. All right. For it to be constantly in your subconscious mind, that every intention that you have towards anybody and everybody is also making its way to you. Okay. Now, let's deal with the part of you that wants to resist that right now, because you want to be able to get away with doing somebody else dirty without the consequences of it happening back to you. All right. That's a heart issue. That's a heart issue within you. So we want to invite the presence of the light of God's love into that space where that resistance is, and replace it with being completely okay with that, because you are open to and receptive to your heart just being pure enough to only have good intentions towards other people, period. All right. All right, I'm going to do 2 more and then we'll close this out for today. All right. So of those, one of the things I'm going to deal with is ancestral issues. Things that have been passed down from one generation to another that haven't been resolved. All right, I want to look at 18 different ancestral issues. I'm not going to worry about naming those right now. And going back how many generations? 19 generations. All right. So that healing is not only taking place within you, but going back 19 generations as well. This is powerful stuff that we're doing today. All right. And actually passed down to the generations coming after you. Actually showing up as less of an issue. All right. Okay, and this is the last one that we're going to do today, and then we'll close it out for today. And this one is willingness to be aligned with God. Greetings, Mel K. Willingness to be aligned with God. And there's resistance to being aligned with God because of FOMO, fear of missing out. So we're going to address that FOMO, that fear of missing out, transmuting that into receiving more abundantly. Instead of having the fear of missing out, joy of getting even that much more by being divinely aligned. All right, that's looking good. Oh, God, thank you so much for the healing that's taking place today. For this healing to protect our hearts. To protect our hearts. Thank you for the heart filtration system, and for the assurance that if we ever have any issues with it where it's not functioning properly, that you will be immediately available for a service call to get our hearts right, and that you'll do so in love, in a way that doesn't have to be painful, but is in love. And I bear witness once again to our wholeness and give great thanks for it all. Ashe and amen. All right, beloved. It's certainly been good being with you here again today. As always, if you have any interest in Transcending the Matrix, which I thought was a healing modality, it still is a healing modality. I've seen a lot of wonderful things happen. We've got some people who are tuned in right now, who are practitioners of this methodology, who've also seen some wonderful things happen with it in terms of healing of physical issues. But what I've really come to recognize, which I didn't always know, is this is a really powerful tool for our own spiritual growth, to be the highest and best versions of ourselves, to get over ourselves and really move in the direction of enlightenment. Okay. And isn't that part of the goal? We're all endeavoring to enter into this, what I call, sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. Ron Hamilton, good to see you, brother. All right. And so anyway, speaking of which, if anybody is interested in getting aligned with this work, being able to do what it is I'm blessed to do, where I get to see medical miracles happening in people's lives, and even more importantly, hearts transformed. We've got a training available, Transcending the Matrix, initiation/training. That's taking place the last weekend of this month, June 27th through 29th. It doesn't matter where on the planet you are, because we're going to be doing it via Zoom. And it's going to be a wonderful experience, Friday through Sunday, the 27th through the 29th. Reach out to me at Royce Fletcher Thomason, either on Instagram or on Facebook. Just send me a message, and I have the thing pulled up somewhere. Yeah, just send me a message and let me know that you're interested in the training. I'll send you out an email containing some information, and we'll communicate and see if you'll be able to get in on that training. Anyway, until we meet again, as we continue to endeavor to enter into the sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, until we meet again, I bid you adieu with peace and love. Catch you next time.